In this video, we're going to take a look at adjusting our likes system to allow a user to like either a post or a comment. In total, we're going to take a look at 3 possible solutions. Now, this might sound like overkill to take a look at 3 solutions for this, but this is actually a kind of important topic, or at least this idea of allowing a user to like either a post or a comment kind of outlines or frames a rather interesting problem in the world of SQL. So let's get to it. Let's take a look at our first possible solution. So the first solution we're going to take a look at is referred to as creating a polymorphic association. Polymorphic associations are generally not recommended, but you're still going to see them in use in quite a good number of applications you might work on in the future. So with a polymorphic association, we still have a table of users. I'm just condensing it down to make this diagram more clear. We still have a table of likes, posts, and now we've got our comments table inside of here as well. So the big difference here is that our likes table has changed a little bit. Rather than having a post ID column, it has a liked ID column. It also has a new column called liked type. So to figure out what each row inside of this table represents or what a user is trying to like, we take a look first at the liked type column. So this first row is a like for a post, specifically a post with ID 2. So we'd say that first like represents a like for that post right there. The next row down is a like for a comment with an ID of 1. So it would be that comment right there. And then we've got a like for a comment with an ID of 2. That'd be that one right there, and so on. So each row of the likes table still kind of represents the idea of a like, but is a like for a post or a comment, and we figure out which one it is based upon the value inside of the like type column. So this kind of seems like it's a reasonable solution. Why is it so bad? Well, it all comes down to this liked ID column right here. Remember that to form associations between different tables, we create something called foreign key columns. We've been making use of foreign key columns throughout this entire course. And just about every time that you've seen a column with a name like user ID or post ID or anything like that, we are always talking about a foreign key column. We're using these foreign key columns to represent or relate rows in different tables. Now you might recall when we first spoke about foreign key columns, they're actually treated a little bit differently by Postgres. Whenever we try to insert, say, a new like with this kind of original design over here, Postgres is going to take a look at the value that we put into the user ID column. In this case, if we try to insert a row with a user ID of 3, then Postgres is going to go over to the users table and make sure that there actually is a user ID of 3. If there is no user ID of 3, then Postgres is going to throw an error and say, hey, we can't form an association with a user with ID 3 because there is no user with an ID of 3. Same thing for post ID as well. Postgres, because this is a foreign key column, is going to automatically make sure that there is a post with an ID of 2. Remember, we set up all this foreign key stuff when we first create each of these different tables. When we create the table, we say, hey, this is going to be a foreign key column. It's going to reference this column on this other table. So we really like and we enjoy using foreign key columns in general because they allow us to have some level of data consistency inside of our database. It means that we're not going to be creating records pointing at other rows that just don't exist. So we really like and we want to use foreign key columns. So how does that relate back to liked ID over here? Well, unfortunately, we cannot create liked ID as a foreign key column. That is the problem. And the reason for that is that when we create this table and we tell Postgres that this is going to be a foreign key column, we can't tell Postgres if it's going to be a foreign key on the post table or the comment table. We don't know up front. We only know later on when we actually insert a row into this table. So this like type column right here, this is a column solely for you and I, the developers. Postgres cannot use this column in any way, shape, or form to automatically resolve a foreign key or figure out where this is a reference to. So when we make use of this polymorphic association and we've got this like type column and this liked ID column, we cannot treat this as a foreign key column. And so we lose out on this entire idea of data consistency. We could very easily insert a like in here that refers to a comment with 99999, and well, we don't have a comment with that ID. And so we can very easily accidentally insert data that is going to refer to some other row that just doesn't exist. And that's bad. We don't want that. We like using foreign key columns. So this approach is bad for that reason. Okay, so having said that, you're still going to see it in use in a lot of different projects. In particular, Ruby on Rails projects make use of polymorphic associations like this a decent amount. The last thing I want to say here, I meant to say this just a moment ago, the liked ID column is not a foreign key column, it would just be a plain integer column. So we would not say, hey, this is a foreign key column, even though it's following that same naming convention. It would be just a plain integer. We can still use that column to do join statements and whatnot. We can still join likes with posts or likes with comments. We could still write 100% valid queries. The only downside to this whole approach is that we lose out on that data consistency. Okay, so that is polymorphic associations. It is the first way that we could allow a user to like either a post or a comment. Now, rather than have this video get really, really long, let's take a quick pause right here and then take a look at another way that we could allow a user to like a post or a comment in the next video.